there's one thing this pandemic situation is showing us, it's that we're all connected. And on some level, we're all suffering. But we're also ready to fight our way through. In this series, I'm speaking to people I call friends, people I respect, people I want to see do well. Because in the end, we all have to carry on. And it's better if we carry on together. I am here with Samantha Finigan, one of the co-owners of Gus Ruby Letterpress. Samantha, for people that are not familiar with you or Gus Ruby, can you just give a bit of background about who you are and what Gus Ruby is?
Definitely. So I'm Sam. I'm one half of Gus Ruby Letterpress. Whitney Swafield is my business partner. And she and I started the business almost 11 years ago now, which is kind of wild. So we have two main tenants to our business, but we are a brick and mortar retail store here in Portsmouth, downtown Portsmouth. We also have a shop in Portland, Maine, and soon to be opening our third shop down in Beacon Hill in Boston. But we started out primarily as a custom design and letterpress print studio. So before we even had the stores, Whitney and I are both designers by training. She's now the creative force behind us, and I'm more focused on the business and client retention type of role. But we are letterpress printers, so that's a really specific sort of niche printing technique.
Tell me kind of that process or the thinking on how you change things up, pre current situation. Like, what was the standard life cycle throughout the year?
We're very much fly by the seat of our pants retailers in the sense that neither of us are like real strategy gurus, or we're trying to be better as we grow, that we know there is a whole lot of really brilliant thinking out there about how retail works best. But Whitney and I really focus on sort of ordering from the gut. I should say Whitney, myself, and Bertie DeLando, who is our director of operations and a primary buyer sort of in our team. So the three of us really focus on ordering based on sort of our gut feeling about what our customers are looking for. I would say we're changing up the merchandising of our store probably every 2 or 3 weeks. And that's mostly because we carry such a huge variety of things and our inventory levels sort of fluctuate so drastically that in order to make sure the displays are feeling fresh and full and also relevant to each other, it just requires a lot of hands-on merchandising.
Tell me a little bit about how things were going before, pre-pandemic.
Yeah. So, they were going really well in the sense that we were in this leap, we were in this growth leap as planned. We run a really lean shop in how we sort of the finances of the business. So growth is always very stressful because Whitney and I we don't love taking on debt and things like that, but that's how you have to grow a business. So it was going great. It is a challenging time to have this all come sort of crashing to a halt because we probably have more of these irons in the fire than we would have ever chosen to put in the fire had we known this was all going to happen. Business we've learned to sort of ride the wave of retail a little bit over 10 years. There have been years that have been unbelievable and years that have been slower. And we focus less on that individual spikes and drops because over time they have sort of all leveled out to some degree. Mm-hmm. Portsmouth is in a funny growth stage, I think, as a community where there's obviously a ton of growth happening. Development of Portsmouth, which has such benefits and drawbacks for different reasons. So Portsmouth has been sort of in an interesting sort of teenage year, it seems like, for us, that we're a little big for our britches in terms of rents and the demands of retailers downtown to stay in it. But I think that will level itself out. And if you can kind of hang tough through some of these years where we make that next step up, this next sprint as a town.
What has been the impact on your staff, and what steps have you kind of been taking behind the scenes to help ease this burden?
We closed the stores probably on the earlier side of the curve of people in Portsmouth. I think we were like the second store to announce that we were closing. It was before we were told to, but Whitney and I just felt like, just from a public health standpoint, we were like, we don't really understand how we could stay open and feel like that was a safe choice for our staff or for our community. So we closed. That is the single most burdensome is a negative word. I can't think of another word that means the same thing, but like heavy part of being a business owner is being responsible for other people's careers, and that these people depend on us. And these are people we adore. We have like the best staff. They're part of our families, you know? So that responsibility is huge. They're counting on us. They're counting on us to keep our business alive because this is their career. I mean, it's our career and we want it for that reason too, but that is a huge driving force for Whitney and I. And like, we need to sort of batten down the hatches to maintain the health of our business for some long-term, you know, for the longevity, so that we can all still have these careers to come back to.
So along those lines, what kind of support have you been able to source?
You know, I think that the biggest challenge about all this is like there are a lot of loan options and that's great. But as you noted in the beginning, we are in a growth stage already. And absorbing debt as a small business during a time like this is really tricky because it sort of then presumes that you're somehow going to make this money that you've lost back, like, or that your business will become better than it even was beforehand to help defray the cost of this debt that you've sort of added onto your ledger.
Tell me, what have you been hearing from, you know, your business neighbors, from others in the community about, you know, what people are expecting from, you know, a fundamental drop in tourism?
I think that our neighbors, our retail neighbors, we all have similar concerns in that we rely on people wanting to go downtown, grab a coffee, pop in and out of a few cute shops, and have impulse purchases, essentially. So when you're all of a sudden saying like, okay, your customers are going to need to wear face masks, gloves, have hand sanitizing spray, they can only step within 6 feet of each other in a tiny little downtown store, it becomes a very different shopping experience. The energy of the store is really different. And so it's hard for me to imagine how people are going to be like running out to go do these kind of non-essential shopping trips, especially when the option to shop with us online or shop, you know, in a way that feels maybe more comfortable.
Moving on from that, what kind of practical steps are you planning for?
So we've been really focusing on our web store. So many small businesses had like this major pivot in their business and then had to try to like ramp up and build a web store overnight, which is an impossible task. So we were lucky in that sense that we already had it and our inventories were already tied. So for us, we basically just have absolutely put our nose to the grindstone and moved our entire store online. So it's like all those high touch experience, that really personal service. You know, we try to write handwritten notes to everyone that places orders with us. Our packaging is really thoughtful. We wrap gifts for people. You know, we try to make sure that experience of shopping at a small boutique, even online, feels similar in that like it's really thoughtful and people are really trying to make sure that your shopping experience is pleasant and helpful and curated. We're going to certainly focus on more of that curbside pickup option so that people can order online, come to the store, not have to pay for shipping, but maybe still not coming all the way into the store and like browsing around. I mean, we absolutely will be reopening our stores at some point. It's not like, oh, we're not going to reopen. It's just, I think we're feeling like we'd rather be the way we were on the earlier side of closing. We'd rather be on the later side of opening and we're taking a little bit more of a sort of cautious wait and see look. You know,
I want to ask, how are you personally doing? I mean, you're married with kids. How is this impacting your family life?
I mean, my husband and I say a lot that there obviously are some major silver linings to all of this, and that I think it has for sure highlighted like the ways in which we could have slowed down and need to slow down. It's been really cool. I have a 1-year-old, and like that 12-month mark, the development that happens like within 2 or 3 days at a time is staggering. And it's cool that we're just home with both of our kids, but like to watch Jack learn things in front of your eyes that I I wouldn't necessarily have seen, or Pete wouldn't have seen, because we both were working full time. Like, that's pretty cool. And we feel grateful for that. And Finley, my 3-year-old, or my 3.5-year-old, same thing. Like, I mean, she definitely, these kids are like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to us. They're so psyched that we're home all the time. Everyone's doing what they think is best for themselves, for their families, for their communities. And also, in the face of whatever other challenges they have, I think it's really easy to be like, well, I would never, like, even talking about opening or not opening your stores. It's like, for very many people, there's no choice. If I'm not making any money at all because I don't have a web store, I don't have any, I don't have any other way to make transactions, I could say till I was blue in the face that I, care about the safety of myself and my family. But if this is how I feed my family, and the only option for me to have any sales at all or any transactions is to open, then, like, who am I to say that that's not a good choice? We all have to survive. Like, everyone's just doing their best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time from your day to spend it with me and talk about how this is impacting you. And for all of you watching, thank you. Please remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment for Sam and Whitney down in the comments below. Yeah. Remember that we will get through this, and it's better if we all carry on together. So thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
What are you doing?
There. You see, Nora, different letters have different purposes. They do all kinds of things. There are letters of invitations, and some of them are formal ones. Now, let's see. You don't seem to have one here, but I got one in the mail just today. See? You'll notice it's written in the third person. And down here they note formal. Well, I'll write a formal answer that starts out like this. Mr. Walter Barlow accepts with pleasure. And so on, And of course I'll dress formally for the occasion when I go. It's only when the party's formal that the invitation is written in the third person. Now take an informal invitation like this one. You don't have to write an answer to this kind of invitation. Chances are your phone will accept this one.